Hello, my name is Mike Stevenson from Witness Drafting Services. Today I want to talk to you about how to draft an RTA fast track witness statement. Now this should be a fairly simple thing to do, however there might be one or two things that you might not have thought about when doing so. It is important when drafting a witness statement that it complies with the civil procedure rules, which could be found in a simple Google search. If you look at part 32, practice direction 17, 18 and 19, then you will clearly see how your witness statement should be set out. This should have the parties' details on the front. There should be a box in the top right hand corner explaining whose witness statement it is and how many witness statements there have been. It will also explain the numbering, the paragraphs and just generally the layout of the statement. I would advise when doing a witness statement that you should make sure that your paragraphs are not just one sentence long, that you put a few sentences together in each paragraph. That way it would read a lot better. And when you are doing exhibits to be attached to your witness statement, that the exhibits are clearly set out within the statement, put them in bold and put a number next to where it says Exhibit 8, for example, Exhibit 1, Exhibit 2, Exhibit 3. Put that in bold where you're referring to it and put that at the back of the witness statement. When you're about to draft your witness statement, you need to make sure that you look at all the materials on file, such as the medical report, the CNF, the engineer's report, the police report and any other relevant information. You can then speak to your client and make sure that you get all the details that they're telling you and making sure that they do not contradict the information that you already have. If they do, then seek clarification from your client, and if potentially, for example, the medical report needs to be amended, make sure that it's sent to the medical expert to amend the report so that every single document that is on the file in relation to your client's claim is entirely consistent. You do not want to go to trial and have a situation where the barrister is pointing out inconsistencies to your client under cross-examination, and then he will have to try and explain that to the court and to the judge, and ultimately it is going to look like the client is a poor witness, which when you're trying to prove your client's claim is not what you want. You should always try and make sure that you prepare your client's statement as if it's going to go all the way to trial. Even if you think that you may not go all the way to trial and it might settle earlier, then it's important that you do so, because ultimately you never know how far the case is going to get. It might go to trial, it might not, but it's important that you have a solid, detailed witness statement which is going to assist the third party solicitors and will also assist the judge when considering your claim. You do not want to be in a position where a poorly drafted witness statement is presented to the court and to the judge and he reads it and he doesn't think very much of it, so you want to be in a position where you have the judge on side. Otherwise it might be an uphill battle. If the judge already doesn't like how well the witness statement has been drafted, he's already looking at the client, looking at your barrister, thinking I already don't like this claim, so it's always better to put yourself on the front foot and give the best possible witness statement as soon as possible. Make sure that the statement is in the client's own speech or language. You don't want a statement which is in legal speak or in speak that doesn't really sound like the client, and so it's important that it sounds like it's coming from the claimant's own words. For example, if you're in a position where the witness and your client are the same thing, you don't really want to be copying and pasting from the client's statement into the witness's statement and vice versa. Otherwise, the barrister will ask whether it's their own words and point it out that it is the same as within the witness's statement, or for example, if you just copied out of the medical report, then it will cause your clients real difficulties within the witness box. You might think that you can get away without doing a witness statement until you've issued court proceedings. However, you've got to think about how well do you really know your client's claim. You can't entirely be sure what your witness is going to say in the witness box until you have a witness statement, or at least you'll have a much better idea and be in a much stronger position. There is also the possibility that if your client unfortunately passes away, then the insurance company although they may pay out, you might be lucky, they may pay out. However, without a witness statement, they may say that you have no evidence, that they can't pay out your client's claim, and that could be leave you in a position where you have to pick up the tab, you have to pay. So there are difficulties at the moment, obviously, with fast track costs and not being able to recover the cost for all the work that you do, but obviously each practice needs to weigh this up to consider what is best for them, but obviously that has to be weighed up with the risks that you would have to pay out the claim yourselves. When drafting the witness statement, you need to have within the first couple of paragraphs an explanation of what the client's name, their address, what they do, and what is their date of birth. So you're setting the scene, who are they, so that everyone is aware. You then may want a paragraph which sets the scene so the reader understands what the witness statement is going to be about. So, for example, you may say, I was driving down Acacia Avenue in my Vauxhall Astra motor vehicle N123XYZ, and I come to stop at some traffic lights when a motor vehicle registration number XYZ TNQ collided with the rear of my vehicle. At this stage, you can go into further detail. What you're trying to do is tell a story about what happened. So just set the scene at this stage. So you can say, where were they going? Where had they come from? What were they planning to do for that day? Were they in a rush? Was anyone else in the vehicle? What were the road conditions like? Was it dry? Was it wet? How fast were they going? How familiar were they with the roads? Is it a narrow country lane or a wide A road through a town? Were they on their mobile phone? Although it's unlikely that they're going to admit that to you, it's still worth making inquiries just so that you know that you're not caught out at a later stage. Also ask them whether there are any passengers within the vehicle. It's important to understand this in case they want to make a claim, and if so, it's important to get their witness statement as well. Otherwise, the other party will question why you don't have their statements. They may draw an inference from that. So it's important that you get their statement and it is detailed as well, exactly what they were doing. Next, you need to consider the mechanics of the accident. When did they first realise that the accident was going to take place? When did they first see the third party? How fast was the third party going? What happened when the collision took place? Did the vehicle move? How did they move around in the vehicle when the accident happened? In relation to the other driver, did they look distracted? Were they on their mobile phone? And when did the third party first look like they realised the accident was going to happen? You also need to ask your clients whether they've got photographs of the damage to the vehicle. This helps in fully understanding how the accident happened. For example, was it a direct hit? Did the vehicles scrape along each other? This is important because if you understand looking at the photographs what happened, then does it tally up with what your client is saying? And does it tally up with what the other driver is telling you via their insurance company or solicitor? So it's vitally important that you understand, looking at the photographs, what you think happened in the accident, and does that tally with what your client is telling you when you're drafting the witness statement. All this information is vitally important where, for example, the other side are suggesting it was a low velocity impact and therefore how possibly could your client's injuries have happened as a result or caused as a result of the accident. So these types of cases are very fact sensitive, so it's important that your witness statement has all the information within it that is required to ensure that your client looks as credible as possible. You need to consider what your client is telling you. Is what he's telling you appear to be credible when you look at, for example, the photographs of the accident location? Is he sure that that's how the accident happened? You might be in a position where he's telling you one version of events and you look at the pictures that he's supplied and you're thinking, well, this doesn't tally up. The road layout might be different to how the claimant is describing it, so just make sure that you and your client are fully on the same page when it comes to the actual accident location. It is important to get this resolved as soon as possible. Otherwise, the third party are going to raise queries. If their client had said, no, it happened somewhere else or at a different roundabout, for example, then they're going to come back and ask questions, and immediately puts you on the back foot, and your client at this stage looks like a poor witness. So even though you think your client is a good claim and he might be mistaken, it still puts you on the back foot when it comes to trying to settle your claim as early as possible, or if it goes to trial and it's unclear where the accident happened because one party's saying one thing and one party's saying another. You don't want to be in the position in a witness box where your client suddenly says, oh, actually, no, it was the other location. So just make sure that you are clear where the accident happened. You then need to include within the witness statement about the immediate aftermath. What happened? How quickly did your client get out of the vehicle? Did they speak to the other driver? What was said? Did anyone admit responsibility for the accident at this stage? How long afterwards did they wait for the emergency services to arrive, if that was relevant? What did the third party do during this time? Was the vehicle drivable? Did they just drive off? Were there any witnesses about? If so, then it's always a good idea to get their details as soon as possible. There might be a possibility that your client says that the third party is a witness, but they weren't there at the time, which you need to investigate further. Or it may be that they turned up 20 minutes after the accident, after potentially the other driver called them up. Or was it genuine? Did they turn up immediately after the accident, so it's a clear chain of events that they perhaps parked up and then walked back to speak to either your client or the third party. And if you do have the witness's details, it's vitally important that you contact them as soon as possible and you make sure you get their statement as soon as possible in order that you have that goodwill with the witness. The longer you leave it, the more likely it is that they will not provide a witness statement, so it's important that you do that as soon as possible. You also need to consider, did the police attend? What was said to the police at the time of the accident? Were either of the parties breathalyzed at the time? So you need to make sure that you get a police report. Make sure that it's the same within your client's witness statement as what it says within the police report, and vice versa. If it doesn't, then obviously you need to seek clarification. Hopefully at this point you haven't exchanged your client's witness statement with the third party, so it's important that you establish that what he is saying is the same as what he said within the police report. I'm now going to talk about the quantum element of the claim in relation to your client's injuries and also his financial losses. You may already have a medical report when you do the witness statement, and when you have the medical report, make sure that obviously what is within the medical report is within the witness statement as well. You don't want to be copying it verbatim. You need to make sure that there's enough of a difference in order that, for example, when it goes to trial, the barrister doesn't ask whether it's in the witness's own words, and if he says yes and then he looks back at the medical report and it's exactly the same thing, then it doesn't make your client look like a terribly good witness. So it's important that it is within his own words. You also need to make sure that you're adding to it as well. You need to make sure that there's additional information that might not have been picked up by the expert. It might be that your client was seen by the medical expert 3 months ago. Obviously things would have moved on by then. Has he had any physiotherapy that was recommended by the expert? How has that gone? Has anything else happened at all? Are the symptoms getting any better? Does it look like he's going to recover in line with the prognosis? Has he returned to work if he was off work at the time? And if he has, is he just on light duties? Is he also is he or she needing care and assistance from a friend or relative? And if so, then obviously you need to obtain the details in relation to that. As long as it's covered within the medical report as well, then you need to make sure that you get a witness statement from the carer in support of your client's claim for any care that he has received. The witness statement must cover all losses that your client is claiming for. This is his opportunity within this statement to explain these losses to the court, so it is important that it's there. If it isn't there, then there's no evidence to support those losses, so there's a real risk that they will not be recovered. As a result of the accident, the vehicle may not be drivable anymore, so you need to make sure within your witness statement that you include either the cost of the repairs or the economic loss to your client for a vehicle which is beyond reason to repair it. So that's important. Which brings me on to hire and credit hire. So you need, because the insurers are quite hot on this, they obviously don't want to pay for the cost of hire, so it's important that you put a lot of detail in relation to this. In relation to number one, why did he need the vehicle? Why did he need a vehicle during that time? And also in relation to proving that he was impecunious, that he couldn't just go out and get a vehicle off his own back with his own money. So you need to be able to have a discussion in relation to, what was his finances like, see if you can get his bank statements, any credit cards, that kind of thing, to show that it would really put him in a difficult position to go ahead and get a hire vehicle from his own money. We also need to establish whether he mitigated his loss. For example, he might not have thought about this, but a potential example would be where he gets the hire vehicle, he uses it for a week, but then a week later he goes and sees family in another country for a month, and his hire vehicle sits on the driveway for that period, and then it later comes to light that he didn't use that vehicle for that time, and therefore that could potentially put your client in a difficult position, as he didn't realise that he shouldn't be hiring that vehicle at that time. It may be that no one's explained that to him, but if he's giving evidence that he had that vehicle during that time at court, then it could put him in a very difficult position. There may be a situation where your client doesn't even realise he's entered into a credit hire agreement. He might think that the vehicle has come from his insurers, whereas in fact he's been contacted by a credit hire company. He might not have fully read the documentation that he's been sent to sign, so it's vitally important that he understands what he's entered into and that is relayed within the witness statement, so that when it is presented to the third party, then they can see that he knows the type of agreement that he has entered into, and will be in a better position to hope for recovery of the credit hire costs. It must be made clear at this stage that in relation to some of these losses, I do not intend to go into great detail. The purposes of this video is to explain how to draft a witness statement. Obviously this is in relation to general claims handling. So if you're expecting a full description of these losses, then I would suggest that you look elsewhere. As I said, this is just making sure that you fully understand how to include those losses within a witness statement. As you should know, any witness statement should be verified by a statement of truth signed by your client. So it's vitally important that you explain to your client that he could be found in contempt of court if he does not. If he provides a statement which is false, and obviously the maximum punishment would be imprisonment. So it's important that although you don't make it seem too onerous, that the fact that they still fully understand the implications. Obviously, if you have a good client and they are truthful, then that shouldn't be an issue at all to them. They should sign it and there should be no issues. So that brings us to the end of this video on how to draft a witness statement. I hope you enjoyed the content. I'll hopefully be doing some more videos in the future. Soon I will be doing an article based on what was discussed today if you want some more detail about the contents of this video. So keep your eyes peeled please on this YouTube channel. In addition, please visit the website Witness Drafting Services. That's Witness Drafting Services. You can also find me on LinkedIn and on Twitter, where I should be able to provide the article in relation to this video. Well, thank you again for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that you're able to use it in relation to your own training or training of employees. So please give me a thumbs up, and I'll hopefully see you for the next one.